Hi everyone, my name is Jamie Johnson and I'm here to talk to you about crisis communications and the Pulse Nightclub shooting. It's a situation that's pretty close to my heart. I know a lot of people in Orlando, including my little sister. So this particular crisis is pretty important to me. The Pulse Nightclub shooting happened on June 12th, 2016, when Omar Mateen walked into the Pulse Nightclub and started shooting. He killed 49 people and injured 53 others. It will go down in history as not only the deadliest mass shooting by a single shooter, but also the deadliest incident of violence against the LGBT community. It's also been the deadliest terrorist attack in the United States since September 11th. Pretty scary if you ask me, and just very shocking. So, before the shooting at Pulse Nightclub was the shooting death of Christina Grimmie. She was a participant on the show The Voice, and I think she got 3rd or 4th place, and she was unfortunately shot and killed on June 10th, 2016 at the Plaza Live after her concert with the band Before You Exit. She was at a meet and greet afterwards, signing autographs and CDs and stuff like that at the merchandise table, when Kevin Lobel walked up and shot her. Grimmie's brother had tackled her, and then Lobel shot himself. OPD arrived on scene pretty quickly afterwards. The shooting had taken place at 10:24. She was pronounced dead basically roughly 30 minutes later, so around 11 p.m. So that investigation was still ongoing when the Pulse Nightclub shooting happened. Because this was such a huge deal, being that she was 22 at the time of the shooting, and Kevin Lobel was infatuated with her to the point of stalking, a lot of media tended to this. They all showed up, like all major media outlets showed up. And that infiltration of media into Orlando made it really easy for them to turn around and focus their attentions on the Pulse Nightclub shooting when it happened. We're talking NBC, CBS, and CNN, Fox. I mean, you name it, they were down there. And that can be a little bit overwhelming, especially when you're already shorthanded because half of your team is already working on a previous shooting, a previous major shooting at that. And it's just very, very hard to deal with all that media. Local media is different from major media not as polite, not as courteous. So here's what went right. One social media source, Orlando Police Department Twitter account. OPD decided that they were going to send all of their information out pertaining to this particular shooting, the Pulse Nightclub shooting, on their Twitter account. All information from all agencies, their Twitter account. Alerted the media as to when briefings were going to be happening, and alerted the public to information they needed to know, warned the public on loud sounds that they heard that it was them. An example of that was the explosions that they used at the back of the club when they were breaching and going in to get Mateen. As soon as the information was available, OPD gave it out. They had briefings, not necessarily press conferences. They didn't take and answer questions. They just gave information out. They also put as much information as they could out on Twitter. As soon as they had it, they got it out to the people. And then when federal law enforcement showed up, OPD continued to share information on their Twitter account. It's a perfect decision when you tell people where to find information. You continue to give that information even when you're no longer the lead agency in getting the information out. Here's where things went wrong, though. 2 crises in 3 days equals not enough bodies to cover everything. There was so much misinformation going out about this shooting, and it was so hard to figure out what was right and what was wrong because nobody was around to correct it. Most news agencies, they get their information from Twitter and they get their information from social media. So they were finding these tweets about explosions and bombs and all this other stuff, and they were running with it. And nobody was around to go ahead and correct that stuff. And that's how that information made it on air. And since OPD had nobody on Twitter to fix that information, they ran with it and made it live and ran with it as if it was fact. And that was a problem because then later OPD is like, what are you guys talking about? There was no explosion other than the one that we did. Problem. Second thing is 2 crises in 3 days means all the major media outlets all at once. For anybody who has ever had to work with media, they already know this. But for those of you who haven't, local media is usually easier to deal with because there's that courtesy there, you're friends with them, you've got kind of a rapport with them, you have a relationship. Major media outlets don't care. They don't care about you, they don't care about them, they don't care about anybody else. They want to get their story, and they will do anything they possibly can to get that story, whatever that is. They'll walk all over you, they'll stab you in the back, they'll go behind you, whatever that is. So when they're already there for the Christina Grimmie murder, they will, and then they're there for the Pulse Nightclub shooting, they will go and do whatever they need to do to get that information from you. And sometimes you can feel like you're being attacked by them, which is an accurate description. It's hard when you're shorthanded to handle all of that media, national media specifically, and when you've never had to do it before. And when you're shorthanded, it's even worse because you have no one to turn to and no one to help you. It's very, very, very hard to deal with. And that just makes it even the more frustrating. And by the way, 2 days later, on June 14th, was the Lane Graves incident where the little boy who was in ankle-deep water got snatched by the gator, who was thought to be eaten by the gator but was actually drowned by the gator. You guys know the story. It made national news. It wasn't a good week to be in Orlando, I'll tell you that much. Very bad week to be in Orlando. Here's what we've learned. Don't hesitate to ask for help. If you don't have a crew to ask, call around and have others help you know and can trust help you out. Even another set of eyes on TV can do wonders. You know, there's a lot of PIOs in the area, and Orlando PD specifically is part of a big group of the PIO network, and even those of us in Jacksonville would have been more than happy to help and jump in had we been asked. My particular role is social media with the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, so I would have had no problem sitting down and watching Twitter and letting them know, hey, this is what they're saying. Who do I need to call to correct this? And I would have jumped in and helped them, no problem, no questions asked. But they just were so overwhelmed that they didn't think that they could ask anybody, I don't think. Having another person whose sole purpose is to corral the media isn't a bad thing. Make them the bad guy so you can do your job accordingly. It's easier for you to get your information across and for you to be respected as the person with the information when you're not the one telling them, hey, get back in your cage. Bad example maybe, but it's kind of true. Think about it this way. When you are the person telling them, no, you can't do this, and no, you can't do that, by the way, here's the information you want, they're not going to listen to you all the way. So have somebody else be the bad guy. Have an intern, have a younger deputy tell them, hey, stay in your role, stay in your row, stay in your line, stay behind the tape, don't get over here. And then when you approach them and give them the information, they'll be more inclined to listen to you and take it a little bit more to heart because you're not the one telling them no. The other guy in the uniform is. And go with your gut. Sometimes not answering the question is the best answer to give. If you think answering the question is going to put you, your organization, or your guys in a bad light, then don't answer it. You don't have to answer everything. You can just say, I'm not answering that right now, or we can't answer that right now. It's part of the investigation. It's not necessarily a lie, because if it is part of the investigation, we can't say anything about it. An active investigation is not public record yet. So go with that. There was some incidents with the OPD giving out information specifically relating to the officers who were involved with the shooting portion of the incident with Mateen, where the names of the officers who were in the shooting part of the incident of the shooting with Pulse, the shooting death of Mateen, where once they got the major media, once they got the names of the officers, they started going around and harassing the families, trying to get them to talk. And then it finally, the straw that broke the camel's back was when one of the major news outlets, and I'm not repeating the name, but one of the major news outlets started stalking one of the officer's daughters at her school and actually showed up on campus and started berating her and following her and trying to convince her to get her dad to talk. It got so out of hand that OPD turned around and called out that media organization on Twitter, and it turned into a huge Twitter war, all because OPD was following the sunshine laws and answered a question that they shouldn't have answered. Their gut told them they shouldn't have answered it, but they did anyway. So take it for what it's worth. If your gut's telling you, hey, don't answer that, go with your gut, don't answer it. So that is some of the lessons that I learned doing the crisis communication case study with the Pulse Nightclub shooting. Unfortunately, this was a pretty horrific crime, and 49 people lost their lives. So just do me a quick favor and remember them. And if you have any questions, my email address is at the bottom, and I'll be happy to talk with you guys. But other than that, thanks for taking some time and listening, and have a great day.